Greetings, fencers. So this is our third fader review video. So this is the second fader I ever got, the SGT Standard. So SGT is in Alberta, Canada. It's for his name, Sergeant Garth Thompson. And this is quite a monster of a sword. I'm surprised it's their standard sword because it is quite heavy and large. So it's 3.75 pounds, 54 inches overall, and a 12-inch hilt, or over a 12-inch hilt. So this sword is definitely on the larger side, a little bit closer to Zweihander range. You know, definitely a big long sword, something that I probably wouldn't be able to have on my hip. So this sword uses actually no profile taper. It's fully rectangular, but it does have a large amount of distal taper. And so it's quite thick at the bottom, gets a little bit thinner up top. It's still a reasonably thick edge all the way, but definitely at the tip there are some notches that have been taken out that are definitely on the thicker side, that did have to be filed down because they would have drawn blood. This is a sword that I would feel a little bit less comfortable running my hand up and down the upper half of the blade. It is quite flexible, but it's definitely not overly flexible. So one-handed, I can bend it more than the Reginier. One-handed, and two-handed, I'll obviously get a big bend. And this sword actually was the last one to ever get bent and stay bent. So it took a lot longer on this one, which I was happy about. And even right now, it still looks reasonably straight. It was only the one bend, and it's bent back after sparring. The point of balance for the sword is roughly at the shield, around that 3-inch mark. It's a pretty big shield, and this means it is that nice point of balance that I like, similar to the Reginier, and it's going to hit harder than many of those other lighter point of balance swords. It's going to take control in the bind and really force the exchange. However, I am only 180 pounds. I'm a reasonably thin person. This sword, it definitely controls me more than I control it. If I cut and I don't step at the same time, I'm stumbling forward. This thing will pull me along with it. I can't just stop it anytime I like. I do have to swing it around and make sure I cut to different openings and keep it moving. So what weight does is it doesn't hurt your fast movements, like making a wrath cut, making a crooked cut, anything that uses the pommel to tilt itself. But where you really feel the weight and where you really feel being slowed down with something this heavy is making full arm motions. So from one plow to the other plow to ox, anything that moves your whole hand and you're not able to use the pommel to move the sword for you. And something like this really slows me down, and I can feel that pull on my arms where I just can't always get to places in time. Definitely not something for a smaller individual, but definitely not unusable by any means. The long hilt provides many unique features, so there are more swords being made like this. This isn't really historical, but because we have such large gloves and such bulky gear, it is something that is somewhat necessary. So this one is made quite extended. It allows a lot easier controlling the large blade, so you're not going to hit too hard with this heavier sword, and you are able to control it and pull it back. And so the dark sword is around 4 pounds. This is 3.75. So it's getting closer to it, but this is controlled so much easier than the dark sword because of that long handle. The other thing that the long handle does to help it is you're able to use crossed arm positions like ox and plow, key, far easier with something like this. And so this has actually opened up some new areas of practice in full speed sparring with full gear that many people don't actually get. Most people, if pressured, will reuse their left ox. pretty much 100% of the time. So this actually allows people to use that right ox, and I'll definitely have sparring footage up where I've gotten to use the right ox in sparring and used it to block and not just in thwart cuts. So it has really helped with that, because generally you can't look over your shoulder and your gloves are too big, and there's just no way to comfortably use those positions. So this has allowed that type of practice. So I'd highly encourage, if you're looking at getting another sword, that you can look at swords with a long handle specifically for that practice. It's not something that I'd want to use all the time, but it is nice to force myself to use right ox with a longer sword. Also with the handle, you heard me talk about with the Reginier how because it's such a wasted grip, it's somewhat awkward with mitten gloves where your fingers are stuck together. This is just a pure taper. It means that it's really easy with mitts to hold. There's no problem. Your fingers are always holding onto the sword, and you have a very comfortable grip even with sparring gloves. The crossguard is also significantly reinforced and quite a heavy piece of steel. It's like twice the size of a Reginier crossguard. It's definitely something that I would have a hard time seeing bent. So overall, this is a good sword. It's well made. It's not for everyone, and you do need to be a stronger and bulkier individual if you wanted this to be your standard sword, but this would make it so, based on the quality and everything that I've seen and the service from SGT, I would highly recommend their Junior Feder, which is I think a 49-inch total length, and it's everything's identical to this, it's just slightly shorter, and that looks like something that would be a good sword for anyone looking to get a dependable first Feder in Canada. So, thanks for watching, keep studying, keep practicing. The point of balance for this sword is at the hilt. But definitely not unusable in any so definitely not something